You asked me about how I view or how I see longevity. And of course, first off, when you think of longevity, you think of a long life. And that does enter into it. But when I think of a long life, I don't want it to just be a lot of years. I would like those years to have good quality. And in order to achieve that, there's certain things that we need to do. I think of two people in my life. When I think of longevity, I think of two people who probably influenced me the most. I worked with a man, a physician, for many years, and he was very much into good nutrition and regular exercise. And he practiced what he preached, but I always looked to him, or I always looked at him, and I thought, he's much older than I am, and he is in very good shape and had a lot of quality to his life. And that made an impact on me. That made me stop and think, like, what was the difference? Because you can see people who are much younger, who are already losing quality in their life. And here he was 10 or 11 years older than me, and he still had a very active life. He was, at that point, was probably in his late 60s, early 70s. And he continued that, and he continues to this day to have a very active lifestyle. And that always impressed me very much. And the other person that really influenced me was my mother. And my mother lived to be 92. And I would say that's a nice long life. But what was really important, I mean, she was important to me in many ways, but what was really important to her was that she stayed active. She stayed very active. She was a walker, and she regularly engaged in activities that would keep her moving. She wasn't an athlete. She was not an athlete, but she was always moving. And I remember a couple things that stick with me to this day. And that is one thing, that she lived in a 2-story home, or 3-story, really. It was a basement, first floor, and second floor. And when she was getting older, into her 80s, we had talked about possibly, her moving into, a 1-floor situation where she didn't have to maneuver the steps. And her response every time was, I don't want to do that because I'm afraid if I stop doing steps, I won't be able to do them anymore. And that frightened her. And I always remember that because I think she was very smart, because she's right. If she had stopped doing them, she probably would have lost the ability to do that. And she, like I said, she lived to be 92. And up until 2 weeks before she passed away, she was still bowling once a week. And she was still going to a local nursing home that had a pool. And she went 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. She went 3 days a week and did what she called her water walking. And she would get in that pool and she would walk the length or the width of that pool back and forth. And there was a nice little, it was a nice little social outing as well. But her point was, or her main goal was, to get that water walking in 3 days a week. And she lived a very long life, and she literally was sick for 2 weeks. She got sick, and she was seriously ill, and she passed away 2 weeks later. And that's the only time I ever remember my mother being sick. And so I always hope that I get her health genes. But to me, that's the epitome of a great long life, or longevity, as you mentioned to me earlier. That to me would be great longevity.